Hello and welcome. As always, I'm your host, Casimir Basilius, Imperial Lord, and today is, of course, World Building Wednesday, in which we build worlds, or usually ramble. But today, we're going to try and build some worlds. More so, not worlds, but aspects of worlds. So, well, that's what world building is. So, without further delay, let's input data into files. I am, of course, still wearing my armor plate, but not my sunglasses, as we are not outside, we are inside. So, without further ado, let's build some worlds. So, a key aspect of world building is tying things together. Certain things, well, anything really, affects something else. Well, not everything affects something else, but generally things are tied together. One thing will tie into another thing. Not everything will tie together, but it is a nice way to have a world with a lot of information, data, connecting aspects, which are generally fun to explore, both for players, readers, and as a world builder. Of course, you don't just simply info dump such things on players or readers. There are ways to go about it, but as the world builder, it can be fun to have that background detail for yourself. So, let's do so. Also, when writing or running TTRPGs, having that background information, just all sorts of background information that ties to itself, can help you, as the GM or writer, come up with better ideas, plot aspects, things like that. So, let's do some of that. The question is, of course, what exactly we are going to work on. As we have technically a galaxy to work with, however, we have more than a galaxy to work with, but we usually work in the primary galaxy. Other than that, we do have another thing we have to choose. So, of course, we're going to work in the Terran nations for now. So that doesn't narrow things down much at all. We're going to work on this sector our solo campaign takes place in. In fact, we're probably going to work on the system our solo campaign takes place in, which still, unfortunately, isn't enough detail about what we're going to do. We're just going to slowly narrow it down till we come up with what we need. Speaking of, just for, why is it? That's not ideal. Please. Okay, there we are. So we're not going to put anything in the system right this moment, but I just want to see the system so we can figure out what exactly we are all going to work on to get ideas and all that. So let's check. So we know we're in Sector East 40. That's where this takes place. Subsector 87, subsector location. Yep, what the? 1111. We are in a system with a G class and an M class, both in the same system, binary system. And we are on object 11. No. I know a campaign I've been running recently is on an object 11. We are on object 7. There we are. Well, we're on a moon in orbit of object 7. Moon 3. This object has a lot of moons. 15 moons, in fact. And a ring. It's Chthonian world. Just imagine the view. Imagine standing just in the forest at night. No light pollution. Looking up and seeing a glowing, molten ball of a world above you with a bright ring. As you stand on one of its moons, several other moons dot the sky. Absolutely lovely view. Hmm. And even as we noted in the lore, brings tourists to see the view, in fact. Hmm. There's also auroras on this world. Neat. Okay. So, we know that this world is the capital, sort of. We know that there's several colonies in this world, in this system. Mm-hmm. Object 1 and 2 are used for mining. 9 has an enhanced orbital ring, which is independent. Which one's Object 9? Ooh, another Chthonian planet. This one with an orbital ring. For those of you who don't know what an orbital ring is, it's a ring around the world's surface. This one being an enhanced orbital ring, meaning basically for the most part, it is inhabited. There's an inhabited large ring around the world in which they use for construction mining. There's also a ring around the world, non-orbital, a natural ring, sort of like Saturn, I suppose. We also have some information on Object 16, I bet. Yep, because I remember we worked on the ocean world there. Various station clusters that orbit Object 16 contains both colonies of Object 7 and 3. What is this? Hmm. Okay. Okay. So, let's get back to it. So there's a terrible, terrible ocean world in the system that is used for export of fish, sea life, algae, and ocean-based plants, both as pets and as food. It is also a storm-covered world with constant rain and storms. Honestly, just exploring such a world would be amazing. Just any of these worlds, of course, if you're prepared. For your average galactic citizen, it might be fun, but expensive and dangerous. I mean, for somebody whose mind is uploaded and all that, and can afford such things. Of course, going down to an ocean world with constant storms, I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, it's not like it's necessarily, well, it's relatively dangerous. This world doesn't have the best record per se. It's rather run down from what we've noted. It's not the kind of place you go. It's not a world in which you go down to a resort, you know? I mean, don't get me wrong, I bet there are resorts on the world. But we must remember when world building is we do galactic scale things. FTL is common, travel is common. It is not necessarily expensive to go from one place to another. It is, well, that's not entirely true. Sorry, slight tangent on travel. It's not like we're adding anything new here, but we might as well go over it for fun. So, travel. Traveling on pre-established FTL lanes isn't risky. So there's no innate risk per se in travel. One could say travel is about as safe as for our Elysian viewers, your Earth air travel. It's not risky. Hell, our air travel is safer than your air travel, but our space travel is probably about as safe as your air travel, if not a bit safer. It's not like there's any risk in going from place to place. It is, however, expensive. Well, depends. That's what we're about to talk about. So, here we are. Travel in system. If you're renting a shitty shuttle, you're looking at about $1,000 per day for a shuttle in system. Not the cheapest, but it's not the best shuttle. Contains everything you need for travel, and it's paid per day about $1,000. You can get more expensive things like if you want to rent a space yacht or so forth. This is renting. Like it's yours for the time. You fly it. I suppose if you want to hire somebody else, it's going to cost a bit more. But if you can always get what's the word I'm looking for? transit, in-system transit is so much cheaper, which is you're not renting it yourself. You're basically going on a pre-assigned transit from point A to point B, which is going to be about 200 credits per day to get to rent transit, basically. You can also get cheaper transit for about 100 credits per day. Now, FTL, you can get a bunk for 50 credits a day. You can get a poor tier room for 100 credits per day. You can get an average room for 200 credits per day. You can get good accommodations for 500 credits a day. You can get luxury accommodations for 1,000 credits per day. These are base prices. There are cases in which it can be lower or higher, depending on local economics, which we do actually calculate in-game. We are ever so slightly insane when it comes to details. We do care about what the local things are. We usually only ever indicate the base average price that is then modified by a variety of factors, depending on certain things. Now, if you're going non-major routes or so forth, you can assume the cost will be higher. For instance, there's additional major route price per day thrown on top of non-major routes price. Basically, if you're going non-major routes, which is basically times 10. So instead of 50 for a bunk, it's 500 for a bunk. Instead of 100 for poor lodging, it's 1,000 for poor lodging, etc., etc. But these are also subject to various costs. So it's not necessarily cheap, and these are base prices. Often they will be in packages, which can be a bit more expensive. But in short, basically, it's not super expensive per se to travel. I mean, depends on how far you're traveling. But do remember, like, so these prices are per day. It generally takes a day or so, sometimes more, to get from where you are in the system to the outer system. So that's going to be a day. And then FTL transit, which they'll usually charge you a day no matter how long that takes. And then there's the additional price of going from the outer system of wherever you arrive to the inner system, which is an additional day. So it's usually about a minimum of 3 days. Usually. There's also, if it takes longer to get to your location in FTL, they'll charge you. It's not like the maximum is a day. It's however long that takes. But you're looking at a minimum of about 3 days. So for basically very, very shitty lodging, it's going to be $300 minimum. For average, it's going to be $600. So it's not necessarily cheap, but it's cheap enough that you could, visit another star system as long as it's, a major route. So by that, I mean, like, when I say major route, I mean, are there connections? Do ships actually make this transit? The answer is usually probably yes. Depending on where you're going, the answer is probably yes. So, although they might take detours. So, when you're booking passage, do understand that unless it's a very obvious, like, route, if you're going from a system that you're into the system right next to it, they're probably going to, it'll be instant. There's not going to be a detour. But if you're taking, like, a route that actually has, like, we're going to stop here, 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 and here, it might not be in a straight line. It might go, well, I'll bring it up on screen. it'll be easier to explain with a visual. We're going to frontier sector, just so we can explain. Okay, so you see here, here's Sacred Grove, the capital. Now, if you were going from the capital to here, that would be easy. Very much likely you're going to have a direct route. Now, let's say you're going to here. Why not? Let's move so it's visible here. Okay, so you're going from there to there. A direct route would probably be bam, you know? That's a direct route. But it's probably not common necessarily for a single ship to head there. More than likely, maybe the ship that heads is going to go here, and then it's going to hit here because that's an important system. Then it'll go here to let people off who wants to go there. Then maybe it'll go here for reasons, and then up to here. Who knows? The point being, it might not take a direct route to get to its location. It might have stopovers or places it's going to detour to, etc., which can increase price, even though, because you're probably not going to get a instant transit. I mean, if you book ahead, you might be able to find something that heads on the route that you're looking for. So it really depends, but time might increase due to the fact that something's going on a different route or etc. They're not necessarily going to take a direct route based on, well, a variety of economic factors and tourist factors and social factors and all that. You might find one that goes a direct route. You can always book passage like forced passage. I say forced, but like, you can book passage that's like, I'm going to hire a ship to do this, which is going to cost you a lot more. But point being, like, your route's not necessarily going to be direct. It could be. You could get lucky, but your route might not necessarily be direct. So basically, yeah. But we do have an entire unified space society with advanced technology. And we have nations that range in the trillions. Like, we have systems, star systems. What's the average? Let's see. Like 100 billion for a lower end average system has 100 billion people in it. You're not going to find a system, not a system, you're not going to find a world. I mean, you can. I say you're not going to. It's very much possible. But if you're in civilization, you're probably not going to find a world with less than 10 billion people on it, you know? It's going to be rare in which you're going to find a world with less than 10 billion people. And you're actually more likely going to find worlds with more than 10 billion people on them. So, my point being, like, there's lots of population in space. We have Dyson swarms. And yes, Dyson swarms have, I don't have the number in front of me, but I assure you it is large. I can probably actually bring up the number if I care. I do sort of care. A base Dyson sphere has 100,000 million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, 10, whatever comes after quadrillion people for a base Dyson sphere. Dyson swarm also. So, of course, if you actually heavily populate it, that number can go up. We're talking about an absolute base, lots of living space, lots of farmland, whatever you want. open, very open Dyson swarm with lots of spare space, relatively sparse. I mean, a Dyson swarm, but still relatively sparse. You're looking at, populations that high. We have ring worlds with populations like with a base ring world. So we're talking not heavily, let me put it this way. We have ecumenopolis Dyson swarms. We have ecumenopolis ring worlds. Like, we have ecumenopolis planets, ecumenopolis ring worlds, ecumenopolis Dyson swarms. So if you understand, so an ecumenopolis, if I'm pronouncing it even right, is a world city, a city that's paved over, a world that's paved over with city. We have those for ring worlds, those for Dyson swarms. Like, we have populations, we have worlds with populations and systems populations that just uncountable numbers of people, you know? When we talk about space nations, every major space nation has at least one Dyson swarm. The way we run the world, it's we do have limits. So you can build as many Dyson swarms as you want, technically speaking, but government-wise, it becomes inefficient. Most governments don't want multiple Dyson swarms. If I open I'd have to open my nation book, but I'm pretty sure the limit is one Dyson swarm per sector. That's not like you can't build more Dyson swarms. You can. You can build as many Dyson swarms in game as you want, or in universe, or in lore, in whatever. You can build as many Dyson swarms as you want. There is a rule in regards to what's the word I'm looking for? Control. Your government cannot, at a point, effectively monitor and control infrastructure and politics and people and social views that vast. Your government control weakens the more population you have. As explanations for Dyson swarms will often say, if you have that many people, the amount of people you have with differing views goes up to that amount. For instance, if you have, we'll round up your Elysian Earth. If you have, right now, we'll just round up, you have 10 billion people. We're rounding up a lot, but just, you need it for this example because just math's easy. You have 10 billion people. Think of how many people on your Elysia already don't agree with each other. Think of how many nations you have that disagree with each other. Think of how many political parties you have that disagree with each other. Think of how many differing views you have. How many niche audiences of certain things you have. How many people like certain shows and how many people dislike certain shows. How many plumbers do you have? How many electricians do you have? Etc., etc. Okay? Now, let's go back to our Dyson swarm. You have what, 8, 9 zeros on top of that amount of people? So that many people, in addition, in any small aspect, in any niche political view, etc., etc. So basically, your governmental control in our system deteriorates the more population you have. You cannot effectively manage too many Dyson swarms without your nation shattering. I say shattering, but politically, you just can't retain enough control. So we have a sort of limit of one Dyson swarm per sector to retain control. If for every sector you have, you can have one Dyson swarm and retain control of that Dyson swarm. It doesn't need to be in that sector though. You can have your Dyson swarms gathered together in one thing, but you need multiple sectors to retain control. If you build more Dyson swarms, you're going to take penalties on controlling your government, and law-wise, your government's just going to deteriorate. Like, they are going to split up. Stations are going to want independence. Stations are going to form their own governments. You can try and suppress that, I suppose, but how well is that going to work out, trying to enforce order on that vast amount of people? Like, with that vast amount of people, unless you're actively brainwashing them or enforcing absolute order upon them or hive minding them, even then there will be deterioration. Like it is exceptionally hard to manage that many different views. So basically, that's the limit we have both for in-game practical sense, law sense, and control sense. Because consider how, with that many people, consider how large, even on a small scale, consider how large such a rebellion would be. Even on a small scale, basically put 9 to 10 zeros at the end, or even just 8 zeros at the end of anything. Hell, put 6 zeros at the end of anything, you know? Like, instead of a rebellion, one person's angry. Okay, you have one person willing to actively engage in violent acts. Okay, you have one person actively willing to engage in violent acts. Add 6 zeros because of this scale. You now have a million people actively willing to commit violence. Like, and not like passively. We're not talking about people thinking about it. We're talking about people actively doing violent acts. Like, and that is a minimum estimate. Not even like we're talking about one person. There are likely more than one person. So you're basically, you get my point. The scale is so vast that yeah, you have a lot of forces under your control, but like even then, how many dissident forces do you now have under your control? Because surely there are probably people within your armed forces that are disillusioned with it, especially if you're trying to force control on the people. So they, if there's even one of them in your army, now times that by 6 zeros, not times it by 6, add 6 zeros. You know, like it comes to the point in which control gets hard. So there's basically, it's not like you can't have a Dyson swarm. Like I said, the limit is one Dyson swarm per sector for sanity's sake of just getting anything done. But do understand, like I said, they don't need to be in one place. So basically, the way that works, let's go back to our core map, if I can find it. So basically, for instance, law-wise, the council core sector is full. Not every single system in it, but it's full of Dyson swarms. There's a bunch of Dyson swarms in the council capital. Basically, stats-wise, The Council does not have Dyson swarms in the frontier. I mean, there are a few Dyson swarms in a few frontier sectors, but there's like a lot of frontier with not a lot of Dyson swarms. And a bunch of Dyson swarms here, basically sacrificing Dyson swarms in those sectors for Dyson swarms in the capital. So you can have sectors packed full of Dyson swarms. You can have sectors just absolutely packed full of Dyson swarms, depending on how much territory you control. As I said, also, you can build more Dyson swarms, but you will lose control. You won't be able to control them. They'll form their own governments. You'll have detriments to your, basically your stats if you're running a nation, all sorts of stuff like that. So basically, that's sort of how it works. You can build more than you're allowed to have. It just has detrimental effect on your nation. So all that's to say, given the scale, you understand how many different views there are. If every system has even just 100 billion people, you understand how many views there are. So there are likely people who would love to visit a very stormy, dangerous ocean world where there's constant rain and no resorts. There are more people who'd probably want to visit a resort world, but there are plenty of people who would visit a harsh, rainy, stormy ocean world with heavy cloud cover for fun. Plenty. Not a large amount who would be willing to take the trip out to this world because this world's not unique. It is a unique world, don't get me wrong, but it's not like there aren't other worlds that are ocean worlds with rainy storms that are run down. There are probably plenty of those. The galaxy's a big place, and there are probably plenty of those closer. That's not to say somebody from far away might not visit this one, but it's to say that there are cheaper alternatives that are similar elsewhere. But there are people who would visit this world for tourism, you know? Anyway, quite a tangent to get to simply saying there are people who would visit this world for tourism. But I just sort of wanted to talk about the law of how it all works. So, back to it. Um, so quite a nice place. Lots of independent cities. Let's see. There are space elevators to reach down to the world below. They have ties to Object 9. I just love this world so much. I mean, I wouldn't personally visit it, but I love it. Deep ocean world. That's lovely. Okay. So, Object 16, Object 9, Object 7, Object 1 and 2. There are 5 major nations. But they don't have much control. So we know for a fact that Object 16, no, not 16, Object 9, Probably has a bit of a lower population. Mm-hmm. Ooh, another semi-ocean world. Now this one probably has resorts on it, as it has basically a planet full of island-type terrain. Not necessarily small islands, but this place probably has resorts and the like. We have a barren world. Lots of moons. Lots and lots of moons. And an unstable planet neat. Ooh, an exotic planet. I suppose we need to actually generate that at some point. Anyway, we are going to make a couple of manufacturing companies for Object 9. One second. I need to grab my stat sheet so I can work with it. And then we're going to know Object 9. Copy that. Okay. Now, let's go down to our worksheet. We're noting that so we know who and what is basically, yeah. Basically, yeah. I mean, sort of. The ocean world more so than well, the island world more so than the ocean world. The ocean world is terrible. The ocean world is covered in storms. You can't even see the surface. It is not the kind of place you would want to be. Well, maybe you would. Maybe you want to be on a perpetually dark, perpetually rainy ocean world full of terrible sea life. I don't know. But basically, it's um it's a lot it's a lot worse than the island world. The only problem with the island world, I'd say, is it's noted that the atmosphere is inert, meaning it's breathable. What are the rules for that? I'd have to double check, but basically, oh yeah, no. Specifically, on the on the ocean world, the big ocean world, the one that's just all ocean, it's specifically noted in the law that we wrote for it that they export sea life both as pets and as both as pets and as food. They export all of that stuff to the rest of the system. So it's yeah, the fishing is actually exceptionally good there. I assume the fishing on the inert world atmosphere alien world with the islands is also good. Probably. I haven't noted much about that world, but basically the rougher world is far deeper oceans. So, well, turbo salmon. I mean, more than likely, but there's also other horrors on that ocean world. So, I mean, The fishing there is, yeah, I mean, you'll probably get the equivalent of salmon there, but I wouldn't go there on account of things live in that ocean, things that are not ideal. I mean, it isn't like there are normal fish there. There are definitely normal fish, but there's also alien sea life. And there's nothing more terrifying than alien sea life. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't deploying aquatic mech. Yeah, I wouldn't go there without deploying aquatic mech. Yeah, given the just horrors that live in there. Although I'm not sure. Well, it depends on the scale of mech. The only problem is it's gonna have to be what's the word I'm looking for? Very reinforced, given the depths. It is, I believe, classified as a. Sorry, it's classified as a. I have to bring up. I forget the word. It's like panthalasic, I think. Something like that. Basically, it means it is exceptionally deep. That's object 16. Yeah, panthalasic world. And as you descend towards it from the space elevators that lower to it, because of all the storms, usually you have to take space elevators down. I suppose you could fly down, but it's risky. The surface is not visible through the cloud cover. Many people say the trip down is nerve-wracking as one descends towards a panthalasic world, unable to see it below. As one enters the clouds, all sight of the outside is lost. Often storms will batter the descending space elevator pod as it lowers towards the endless deep oceans below. The main export of this world are fish and sea life, algae, and ocean-based plants, etc., both as pets and food. The constant cloud cover makes the world constantly dark, even during the day. It's a very cold world. It's I mean, the pressure is immense, yes. The fish, the pressure is immense down here. The fish, hey, want to do drugs? Yeah, it's definitely not. I mean, like I said, some people probably want to visit there for recreation, but they're insane. Um, they are insane. But basically, like, yeah, I mean, it sure is a world one might visit. It's all, well, let's put it this way. You're lucky that the standard campaign that we've been running is not was on a normal bio research facility and not a underwater bio research facility. That would have been much worse. Much worse. Um, let's see. Let's note here. So the Chthonian world, which is basically a stripped away gas giant with an orbital ring around it. Um, let's note that we're going to work on shipbuilding corp and a manufacturing corp. the corps of this world are highly tied to the government, mostly government run. Yeah, you did lose your leg and jaw there. But I mean, if to be fair, if you were on a if there was any breach, if there was any breach in the facility, you would have all probably instantly died if it was under the water. If it was above the water, well, fish. You would have had to deal with eldritch fish. Well, not necessarily eldritch, but do you want to deal with genetically engineered fish? I mean, probably. Hmm, let's put it this way. You remember the corpse spider? What if the fish sprouted spider legs? Okay, let's just put it that way. The fish sprouts spider legs. That would have been possibly worse. I mean, it's. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's worse, but worse than a person splitting apart and sprouting spider legs. And oh no, it would have been worse. It would have been so much worse, and I'll tell you why. Your flamethrower helped a lot. The flamethrowers carried heavily. What if the flamethrowers just didn't work because underwater? This isn't my salmon. Yeah, I mean, you probably don't want to try and eat corpse spider infected salmon because next thing you realize you're infected with corpse spiders. Corpse spiders being one of the very dangerous creatures from Death Worlds. For those of you who don't know, corpse spiders are creatures that, well, they're spider-like creatures that infect people, lay eggs in them, and then as the eggs grow, the spiders grow to about the size of the person or larger, kill the person in doing so as they eat their internal organs, and then puppet the body, which is why they're called corpse spiders. They actively puppet the body, not in a sense of like they control your brain. No, no, no. They don't control your brain. They grow to about the size of a person or larger and actively puppet your body with their limbs. Yes. They wear people like meat suits. It is not ideal. Well, I say people, anything. Corpse spiders will infect anything that is of standard biological meaty material. So anything, be it a bird, a fish, a person, a dog, a deer, anything. Terrible creatures. Steam thrower. Would that work underwater? Because I mean, I'm not sure. I don't have access to the data net due to the fact that my, well, multi-dimensional broadcasting device is in front of me. It does interfere with my imperial technology. But steam thrower would actually be good in a lot of situations, like just as a weapon. I'm not sure if it would work underwater, like in water. Maybe. But it's actually a good idea for a no weapon. Relatively, like, luckily, due to the way we built Galactic Requiem, we could stat it. I mean, I know it would work as a weapon. Superheated steam is dangerous. I know it'd work as a weapon completely. I'm just not sure if it would work, like, submerged in water. Replace the lost leg with a flamethrower. That is theoretically an option. You could. We have rules for that. One of the cybernetic attachments is actually like weapon mount. Like you could mount weapons. You could also choose to mount. What's what I'm looking for? Additional robotic arms and so forth, if you really want it. But yeah, no, like if for the lost limb, if you get cybernetic, you could replace it with that. One thing you will have to pick for the campaign is your character will have to decide. I assume because I assume the party's going immediately to the hospital. One thing you will have to pick and inform me of is whether you wanted biological or cybernetic replacement. Of course, biological is more expensive. And then one thing we're going to have to go over is the replacement tier you wanted. Because the different tiers of replacements are there. Anyway. But if you want to attach a flamethrower, you're probably going to have to go with, well, there is biotech variants, I guess, but that'd be strange. Anyway. Let's see. Shipbuilding Corp, Manufacturing Corp. And we'll put a little descriptive text. What descriptive text do we have already? Let's pop on up to it. Looking for object 9. We know that they're industrialized to gather resources, starships, vehicles, raw materials. So let's zoom on down to, yeah, Manufacturing Corp, Shipbuilding, descriptive. Here we go. We'll put a name here. Produces a wide variety of provides a wide variety of goods to this corporation is a corp. The corp is a state-owned and run organization. It's more government than it is corp. They produce a wide variety of goods. They control a small number of the oil rings. Grav mining facilities. And have several surface facilities. There we are. Indeed, indeed. I will do my best to get you a series of the not electronics, cybernetics. A series of I say cybernetics, the book on it, basically. The it's all there, just needs some editing. But basically, cybernetics is the base template. Biotech works on similar rules as robotics and cybernetics. So I just say cybernetics, but like basically rules wise, cybernetics, robotics, and cybernetics and robotics and nanotech work very similar to genetics, bioaugments, mutations, and the like, because basically cybernetics are often just simulating biological things somewhat. But there's biological variants of each one and all that. In addition, that's what I'm looking for. Creating creatures in Galactic Requiem, like you can genetically engineer creatures from scratch, and a lot of that just uses robotic rules. There are differences, don't get me wrong, there are differences in rules, specializations, and all that. But basically, a lot of it is like, I want to make a small crawling robot. You know, you can do that with biotech, and it's similar. Like, give a small creature multiple legs, it crawls, and it's a lot of very similar in the way it works. Yeah, we have an entire book for it. I haven't shared it with the group. I think I've explained it before. Mostly because the book isn't 100% complete, and I don't want to share incomplete information for account of like the stats might be wrong. So you might be like, hey, the it says it does this, and then I'll have to say, I didn't fix it yet. I have to. The stats don't. I'm sorry. The stats don't actually do that. It just hasn't been updated yet, so I don't really share it for that. But like, I mean, as long as you understand that the book is nowhere near complete and the stat blocks you see are inaccurate, I suppose I could share it because it'll give you some idea, at least, of what some of the options are. Oh god. Making Timothy out of vat clone limbs. Oh god. So, if you're keeping up with the concept of making the shittiest robot in the world, that creature will be an abomination. It will scare people. Why would you do this? that that creature you're talking about. I'm sure there's look, if you're making so Jimothy is a robot made out of the worst possible parts, leftover parts. Like, we constructed this robot poorly as a joke. I'm pretty sure if you did that with the biological creature, there are certain laws against that. Like, there are certain laws against that. I mean, look, as an Imperial Lord, no, even in the Empire, there are laws against that. If you make the robot sentient, but out of just like, I mean, this it really depends on where you are. There's no laws against that in the Enstair territories, but I'm pretty sure, like, I'm pretty sure that's like animal cruelty or something to purposely make a sentient biological robot. Shit. I mean, at there are biological robots, but at a point we just consider them creatures, honestly, because there's very little difference between a biological robot and a creature. Spider robots are easy. And yes, if you have a question, you can always ask. The yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Small number of orbital rings, several facilities, surface facilities. Used for mining and direct manufacture. We'll make a special note. The corp does the corp does import several materials and goods as part of their manufacturing. We'll just note that because some corps are fully independent, like OmniCorp does everything itself for the most part, but this corp we're starting will basically do it themselves. Well, not do it themselves, they'll import from elsewhere. Mark's life was forever changed when he saw the miracle of Enster Biotech. His mind was broken and his inhibitions removed. No, don't go the path of the Enster. Don't do it, you fool. Well, now that you all actually have the facility because you completed the side objective, you can. And I believe if the party's plans are correct, you all have 100 workers, and I believe the plan is to do your plan for the initial income, I think. The plan is to use your plan for the initial income. I mean, there are several things we will have to go over for organization running, for your party's organization. But like I said, you could always offload it onto a leader unit. But basically, like, how public do you want the facility to be? Because if the facility you all captured is, if you're sending things there for repair, people might know it exists. So, like, how secret do you want the facility to be is something your party's going to have to consider. I mean, of course, the Commonwealth forces know it's there as they're staying there, and they might tell somebody unless you nicely ask them not to. But at least you have like a place to work with, a workshop, so you can work on robotics or biotech or whatever. And all that. You will also get to decorate the facility and all of that. Here we go. Corp does not. The Corp does import several materials and goods as their manufacturing. They mainly focus on vehicles, but provide a wide variety of mechanical goods. You too. You too. Have a wonderful day. Here we are. Focus vehicles is to provide a wide variety of mechanical goods. The main product is a line of sea ships. I have to note sea because, well, this is Galactic Requiem. So, usually ships mean starships, but we'll note sea ships. The main product is a line of sea ships that they export to where do they export this to? Object 16 and 17. Yep, object 16 and 17. They export their ships to object 16 and 17. Fishing vessels, luxury liners, yachts, oil tankers, sea ships, and structures. What do we call these? Habitat? Habitat modules? Habitat modules and more. This next note is going to be a bit more technical, a bit more rulesy. Is what this next note is going to be. As I am going to quickly open my organizations book so I can note the scale of this organization. Because we have a little chart that tells us details. They are government run, so they are large. Yeah, well. There's our example chart. Does this go all the way? Sorry, I have to count something. Give me half a second. It does, perfect. So, is this a sub-planetary megacorp? A planetary megacorp? Or a large planetary megacorp? They are a planetary megacorp. So, they are org level 18. There. They are organization level 18. So, slight tangent. organizations in Galactic Requiem don't really necessarily have levels, but we have a quick example chart with levels listed to basically represent like tier of an organization. It usually is based on its stats and how much money they have invested, like the value of the organization and their stats. So a planetary megacorp has 100 in all of its stats, usually, meaning that it's generally maxed out. We went with that because it's technically a government-run organization, so it's likely it would have max stats, but it wouldn't necessarily have maximum funding, not maximum property control, etc. So it's at about 500 billion credits of value, but with hundreds in its stats. If we went with Subplanetary, it would have had 80 also in its stats, but as 100's max, level 19 or level 20 would still have 100, but it would have 1,000 billion credits worth of properties and investment and so forth, or 10,000 billion credits worth of properties and assets and all that. Organizations can also have subsidiary organizations, so that's not the maximum they have. And so it's very likely that a maxed out system megacorp also has subsidiary corporations that are also maxed out. You could have multiple maxed out corporations under you considered subsidiaries. But basically, this is a large corp. It doesn't have full funding, but it is super large. And it has about 1 million people working in it. Producing boats and vehicles and all that they will export. Here we are. Corporation is org level 18. So they're exporting to those two worlds because those worlds of water. Mainly export to. The main product line is T-ships and structures. Export objects 16 and 17. These include a variety of shipping and other vessel types. It's a relatively large corporation. So, corporation stat-wise, by the way, a 100 in the stat is a total of 45. So, basically, they're guaranteed to get a minimum of plus 9, 10, 11. So like plus 11 or more on any stat check. Minimum without putting skill in things. So like the way organizations work, we could go on for a long while about how organizations work. Our player party recently just gained an organization under their own control due to completing a contract. It was one of the things that was offered was a starting organization. And so Vecca Biotech gave them the facility with the outbreak that they secured. Of course, they cleaned out the facility, but the facility, workers, and a base supply of resources has been provided to the player party. Hopefully, I mean, they have the option of selling it, but it's basically theirs. Okay. Let's see, the corporation. What else do we need to note about them? I want that to be the last bit of detail because that's important, like rules notes about how the corporation works. Several facilities. Ooh. They have several rival and allied. I'm not sure if that's the correct term, but basically competitors. That's what we're looking for. They have several competitors that they go up against. However, this corp has the advantage as it is I can't type, holy shit. It is tied to the Orbital Wings government. So, object 9. Let's go back up to the top. Here we are. Object 9. Go here. We will input the name of the corp that operates there at some point, as soon as we figure that out. Hence orbital ring. What else did we want to note? Oh, we wanted to note object 16. Nope, 17. That's what we're looking for. 17. Object 17. Alien world. Inert breathable atmosphere. Islands terrain. Object 17 is a object 17 with its many islands and beautiful oceans and reefs. Is a luxury world. Where many rich tourists visit. This is what we talked about earlier in my post where I said that we tie things together. as we note that they purchased many of them. They purchased many of the luxury liners from Object 9. Now, I'm going to have to do a moment of research into my own rules. As we open the environments book, I do want to note one other thing here, however. While the world is, while the world has, the world has many luxury resorts, it isn't entirely peaceful. Every so often, large storms would occur. We'll expand upon that at some point, but basically, there are large tropical storms. Usually, during storm seasons, there's also shut down the tourist leave. However, the local populations and the workers remain. Often these storms cause damages. That need to be panned before tourist season. On occasion, what's the word? Out of season? Generally, these cause a bit of panic. Okay. There was something else I wanted to note about this. Object 17, Alien World. Oh, I was looking up the atmosphere. That's what I was doing. Pop on over to environment rules. Gravity. Atmospheric conditions. Unfortunate, I need to look something up. That is going to take a second to load. Yeah, well. Atmospheres. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Sorry, looking for the proper thing. Here we are. I was scrolling in the wrong direction. Okay. So it is not ideal to breathe on this world, so they need some form of protection. I will also remember that there was one other thing I wanted to note. They do have a fishing industry that exports large amount of fish. They do have ocean-based. Large amount of fish. But it is less than object 16. Okay. The atmosphere of this world is not entirely safe, and as such, the results have climate control, and visitors are encouraged oxygen tanks with them. The atmosphere of this world is not entirely safe, but it is breathable to a degree, and as such, results have climate control, and visitors are encouraged to bring oxygen tanks with them. There we are. Okay. Well, as it is about that time, we are going to call it here for the day, as I need to go and make some coffee. We have gotten several sections of lore done, several new bits of information that we will continue to expand upon next World Building Wednesday. However, next stream should be Miscellaneous Friday, or Solo Tabletop RPG Sunday, which is on Friday, in which we will roll dice on these worlds and see what happens as we play as our mercenary adventurer, Juliana Aldis. As always, I have been your host, Casimir Basilius, and I hope that you, yes, you, have a wonderful day. And thank you for stopping by.